Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
My name's Doug. I'm alcoholic. Is that good? We're actually recording? Oh, perfect. Whew, no pressure. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but I'm going to... Nah, that's not going to work. All right. First, I want to thank Chris for asking me to come down and speak. I don't know if he had any idea what he was going to get himself into, and I think that the only reason he asked me is because a friend of his who I used to sponsor recommended me, and you're going to probably have to write after this, go back to him and say, WTF, bro. Anyway, I also want to take a moment to thank my non-alcoholic girlfriend who came down to support me, and we were at the meeting last night and listening to Steve talk, and he evidently gets to do the full circuit, and she looked at me and said, maybe if you improved your personality just a little bit, you could do that too, which was awesome, because she knows me really, really well. I've also got some other friends in the room, which is awesome to see. Dave up here is actually taking up a collection after the meeting to buy a razor. If you can stop over and say hello to him. He really needs some support in that area. And Jacqueline, thank you for escorting your homeless man down to the meeting. It's very nice, very nice. And Susan and Craig and Jonathan, who I've gotten to spend years and years being of service with in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm sorry you're here again, but thank you for coming. Wow. I've got to start off joking a little bit, just something to do to make myself comfortable. And I've been whining about this for a while, and if you've heard this story, I'm going to apologize, but I spoke at a conference out in Arizona. It's probably been 8 or 9 months ago, and I was speaking on a panel, and I tanked. I tanked really badly. I sucked out loud. And not only did I misinterpret what the point of the panel was, I blanked in the middle of it. And my ego is really tied up in my ability to speak publicly. And so it was devastating and humiliating, and nobody else cared but me. But I've been whining and talking about it ever since, and I just have to remind myself that no matter what, tonight has already started off better than that experience went, and therefore I might get a little bit more comfortable. My sponsor wants me to say hello. He told me to, have fun and tell the truth as if I'm stodgy and a liar, which was, wonderful support. He has been my sponsor for a number of years and knows that these things, as much as I love the sound of my own voice lately, have been making me nervous, and nonetheless, it's been a treat to be here. I have to thank the South Bay Roundup for their hospitality. Nikki and I have been very, very well taken care of this evening, or this weekend, I should say. And it's been a treat to be here. So a couple of particulars, I guess. My sobriety date is November 22nd, 1991. which makes me 19 and a half years sober. I got sober shortly before I turned 20, which is the only qualification I possess tonight to actually speak at a young people's meeting. The pudgy, semi-gray-haired guy that you see before you actually was young at one point. I was sitting outside earlier today, and they give you this nifty little badge that says speaker on it, and this guy was sitting next to me and came up and introduced himself and did the very polite AA thing, and we started chatting, and he saw the speaker badge and he said, "Oh, what are you speaking on?" And I told him I'm speaking on the young people's panel, and he's like, "Oh, so you do a lot of work with young people, do you?" And I said thank you, and but nonetheless, yes, I did get sober. This is, you know, me almost sober half of my entire life. I don't know if that's a vision for you or not. I'm wildly impressed with what Alcoholics Anonymous has managed to do with the piece of human debris that washed up in AA, because I certainly don't ever want to feel as old as I did as the day that I walked into AA. You know, I was beaten and broken and didn't even know that I needed it. You know, I'm gonna tell a couple of quick drinking stories just so you get an idea. We will be out of here by 9 o'clock simply because my non-alcoholic girlfriend wants to go visit the beautiful bar before the night is over. Last call was calling pretty desperately just before the meeting. But I grew up in a little town in Montana, all of about 9,000 people. And I grew up with what people pointed at as an alcoholic father. I know that not to be true today. He was a hard drinker. Something happened in his life that gave him sufficient encouragement to moderate his drinking, and he's managed to do that. Nonetheless, while I was growing up, he was that alcoholic, your father, the alcoholic. And I don't know if you guys have alcoholic parents and you're sitting in this room. I heard a really good analogy for that. It's kind of like chasing after the girl with chlamydia when you want to get laid. You know, it's it's not going to stop you from getting laid, but it might have some serious side effects later. You know, and that was I chased alcohol when I first started drinking. You know, my first drink was 9 or 10 years old. I was at a Thanksgiving dinner. I come from a pretty classy family, so I had some wine out of the box, you know. And I don't know if you guys remember I don't see that anymore when I go to the store. I mean, I'm not looking for it because the only thing that really makes my knees knock together anymore is just the smell of tequila. But it was the wine out of the box that got me started. And it was a Thanksgiving dinner, and I finished my glass of wine because I got a glass of wine with dinner, and I finished all the other half glasses of wine that were at the table and went to the box, you know, and got some wine out of the box. And what happened for me that night happened pretty much every single time that I drank. I drank so much that I blacked out, and then I eventually passed out. I came to in the morning, and I got to hear some stories about how I was entertaining, and then how I misbehaved, and then how I had to be restrained in my room, you know. It's not like at the age of 9 or 10 years old, I immediately picked up the box in a shopping cart and went down to the corner of Walk and Wait in Livingston, Montana, and started drinking on the streets. It just didn't happen like that. But I certainly drank at every available opportunity after that, you know. And I came across something that was to revolutionize the way that I looked at alcohol, and that was a bottle of tequila, you know. Up until that point, I had been trying to drink whatever was put in front of me, and I had really bad reactions to 10 High and Jack Daniels and Wild Turkey and Boone's Strawberry Hill. And I mean, I mean, Mad Dog 2020, they only had grape back then. I mean, that's how old I am, right? So I was stuck with the grape. And that stuff, it would go down and it would come back up. And when you're a teenager trying to impress people, you know, having it come back up in the middle of a party is not so cool. And I really wanted to fit in and be part of. And I had this experience with tequila where I picked up a bottle of tequila and put it to my lips, and it went down and it stayed down. And it went down faster than most of my friends could drink the same amount of water. You know, like it just went down and it stayed down. And that was what I had been looking for, you know, just the ability to drink and not vomit all over the people that were within range. And I mean, I had some shots to begin with, but my friends taught me how to drink tequila with a tequila sunrise. And their description of a tequila sunrise was orange juice and tequila. I mean, they were kind of lazy to begin with, and I refined that over the course of my drinking. You know, by the time my drinking came to an end, I was sitting in a barracks room in Coronado, California, and I'm drinking tequila straight out of the bottle and eating oranges because I couldn't even be bothered to mix it all together to have a tequila sunrise. And you know, you get about halfway through the fifth of tequila, and you start to forget to peel the oranges, you know. And so by the end of the night, I've got orange peel jammed in my teeth, and I'm pulling off of a bottle of tequila. And, you know, I at some point thought my life at 19 should be a little bit different, but it wasn't, you know. A couple of stories that I always get asked to tell. Monty loves a couple of them. So I came out of this high school in Montana and ran away and joined the Navy, which is the short version. I ended up in Coronado, California, and I was stationed at a command there. And all of the new guys, when they get stationed there, their job is to go clean the barracks. I didn't have any other accountability other than cleaning the barracks, you know, so I could go out on the weekends. I could wake up as late as I wanted to, which is kind of unheard of in the military. They're really big about the O-Dark 30 and show up in the right uniform and don't smell like booze completely, you know, I mean. But I went down to Papa's and Beer one weekend with some friends and found her. I blew off my friends and we were out on the beach seeking our horizontal spiritual experience. And the federales cruised by and they let her loose, you know, said, have a good night. And they started asking me questions. And I kept saying, no habla inglés, which they didn't think was very funny. And took all of my identification and all of my money and gave me some encouragement with their nightsticks and left me face down on the beach. And I came to the next morning and miraculously hooked up with her again and got a ride home. But my entire answer for that experience was I can't go back to Mexico and drink anymore. You know, and I don't think I went back to Mexico until I was probably 4 years sober. It just had become ingrained, that old idea, like, I can't go there because that's the problem, you know. I managed to buy a little car while I was stationed in San Diego, but it got impounded and towed away because I couldn't pay the registration or insurance or fix any of the taillights because I was spending all my money on alcohol, and so I ended up riding the bus a lot. And this story is always so much fun to tell. I took the bus across the bridge, and I ended up downtown, and I blacked out because I drank and blacked out at inopportune points. You know, And sometimes, by this point in my drinking, sometimes it was 2 drinks and I would black out, and sometimes I would drink for hours and hours and not black out. It was just unknown, you know. So I blacked out downtown San Diego, and I came out of this blackout a couple of hours later in La Mesa, which is a little bit east. I don't know if you guys know San Diego geography very well, but it's east. And I was in the middle of a film audition. And I don't know if you guys know, but you know, they make a lot of gay porn out in La Mesa, and I come out of this blackout, and I've got $50 in one hand, and I've got a full bottle of tequila in the other, and I looked down and realized that she had a goatee, and and he well, he finished, and then he told me that he told me that I wasn't built right to be a star, but that if I wanted to, I could be a really good catcher. And I don't know about you, but star and catcher kind of sounds like second place, you know. And had I been built differently anatomically, you might have a different speaker. It's so much fun to laugh about that, you know? I mean, it's not like I could go back to work the next day and say to all the Navy guys, hey, guess what I did last night, you know? And there was just no appreciation for that kind of humiliation in the middle of your own particular drinking path, and it took me a while to laugh about that. Needless to say, I had a couple of experiences that convinced me that I didn't want to leave my barracks room anymore. And I spent the last 6 months of my drinking in this barracks room. And like I said, the new guys got to clean the barracks, so I didn't have to I didn't have to get up early. I could get up whenever, clean the barracks. My entire job was just to make sure that this place that we lived and called home was clean. And the Navy has all sorts of wonderful traditions. I'm not a particularly big fan of swearing at the podium, but this is a Navy term, and so I kind of try to give it some leeway. They have something that they called the phantom shitter. And and as a point of hazing, what their job is when the new guy gets assigned to clean the barracks, the phantom shitter goes around in the middle of the night and takes a crap pretty much every place except the toilet, right? And I do the lot of some extraordinarily crazy phantom shitter. I got, the sinks and the urinals and the leather couches and the pool pockets and finger painting on the walls and in the middle of the floor. And so my life at 19 years old is coming to in the morning after not knowing what happened last night. And by this point, I have to have a couple of shots of tequila just to get off my knees, to get out of the barracks room. And then I go out, and there's all of this crap in front of me that I get to clean up. And I thought my life at 19 years old would somehow look a little bit different than this. The important part of the phantom shitter story, as if that wasn't horrifying enough. So I said my sobriety date's November 22nd of 1991, and 6 months into my sobriety, May of 1992, I'm taking a 6-month chip, and I'm still cleaning the barracks. And it dawns on me as I'm taking my 6-month chip that in the 6 months that I've been sober, the phantom shitter hasn't struck once. So this is my life at 19 years old. You know, I'm coming to in the morning and I'm crawling over to the fridge to get some tequila to go out and operate, and I'm facing the monstrosity of my blackouts, pointing fingers at everybody else as if it's their fault that there's crap all over this barracks, and how do you, in the middle of a blackout, manage to wash your hands well enough to get that stuff off? How do you manage to balance well enough over a pool table pocket to actually get everything in there in the middle of a blackout? But this is my life, and I still am pointing the fingers at everybody else, wondering, what has become of this existence that I live stuck in this tiny little barracks room, scared and terrified to go out because God knows what will happen, and looking at the crap that's before me going, this isn't right either, and it went on for what seemed like an eternity, and that was all of about 6 months. And September 27th of 1991, I went to a re-enlistment party. And now you have to, my idea of a party was I got out of the concert t-shirt and took off the Birkenstocks and actually put on long pants and shoes, and I went down the hall, right, to somebody else's barracks room, and we drank there before going to the club across the street on the base, right? And that night, I blacked out like I normally did. I managed to stick my arm through a window and cut myself really, really badly. And I was headed back to my barracks room in the process of bleeding to death. And one of the guys that I worked with actually drugged me over to the hospital on base. I assaulted the doctor and the nurse prior to them strapping me down so they could stitch me up and save my life. And 2.5 hours after my last drink, they did a blood alcohol content test on me, and I was at a 0.28. What's important about that story is that I didn't go down the hall that night to get any extra special drunk. I just changed my venue a little bit, but I didn't drink any harder that night than I did any other night. And they thought that the Navy, the world's biggest drinking club, the Navy, thought that might be a problem, and my boss came over and he picked me up from Balboa Hospital. He said that might be a problem, that I might get in some trouble as a result of that. And I went back to my barracks room and had some more drinks to figure it out. Not once did it even dawn on me that the alcohol might be the thing that was making absolutely everything around me completely unmanageable. November 15th of 1991, I went to Captain's Mast, which is an informal court proceeding for the Navy. The commanding officer of the squadron that I was attached to told me that I had two options, that I could be referred to a court-martial and processed out of the Navy on probably what would be a bad conduct discharge, or I could go to rehab. And then I didn't know much of anything about rehab, but I knew that if you got kicked out of the military with a bad conduct discharge, chances are your life would be spent pumping gas in the middle of a desert, not doing anything ever again, because not even McDonald's will hire you with a bad conduct discharge. This is my thinking at the time, right? And so I said, sure, send me to rehab. And he said, we want you to start going to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous in the meantime, and we will get a rehab date for you as soon as possible. And I'd love to say that November 15th of 1991 is my sobriety date, but it's not. I went back to my barracks room. I blacked out that weekend, much the same way that I blacked out every single time that I drank up until then. November 19th, a guy that I worked with by the name of John stopped by my barracks room while I was drinking, and he gave me a meeting directory of Alcoholics Anonymous for the island of Coronado. And, well, Kat, how are you? Yeah? Perfect. He stopped by my barracks room and gave me a meeting directory, and John related his experience to me with Alcoholics Anonymous, and it was a lie, but it got me to my first meeting. What had been happening for John is he got in trouble at work because of his drinking, and he figured out that if he didn't drink all day, went to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and didn't drink until after that meeting, he didn't get in trouble at work anymore. And so what he explained to me is that you go to AA, you don't drink all day, you wait until after the meeting to go party, and you don't get in trouble at work anymore. And that had been his experience for 6 months, and the idea of stopping drinking sounded really drastic. But maybe the idea of not drinking all day and waiting until after, it's lovely music, isn't it? Waiting until after the meeting, I thought that I might be able to do that. And so on Friday, November 22nd, I didn't drink all day. And it was a really, really long day, a day that I would not ever want to repeat, And I got my newcomer garb on, the oversized sweatshirts, and because this was the 90s, I cut a little hole in it so I could string my headphones up, the old yellow Walkman headphones with the tape, right? So I could rock that all the way, because I couldn't drive to the meeting, mind you. I'd lost that car a long time ago. But so that night, I walked across the island from one end of Coronado to the other to an 8 o'clock meeting, and I sat down in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, not knowing that that was going to be my first day sober. It was an amazing meeting. I mean, generic in almost every sense, but amazing for me, because what I heard as people went around the room and talked about Alcoholics Anonymous and alcoholism and their sobriety was I heard people talk about drinking in a way that mirrored mine that I had never heard before. They talked about their drinking in such a fashion as to convince me almost immediately, yes, I'm alcoholic. The guy that was to become my first sponsor took me out after the meeting to a coffee shop and fed me more mocha espressos than any one newcomer should ever have over the course of, but we were up until 2 o'clock, and I was shaking, but I was getting it, and, but he talked about alcoholism as a disease of the mind and of the body, that the allergy that I had to alcohol was that thing that kept me drinking, and that my mind was the thing that kept me going back to the bottle when all other evidence would point me in any other direction for somebody who was sane, And we stayed up until 2 o'clock that night. He had me meet him at a 7 a.m. meeting, and I was off and running in Alcoholics Anonymous, It was such an amazing transition that I couldn't even look back and acknowledge that I'd been sober for 6 days until it came around to my birthday on November 28th. Because, like I said, I got sober at 19, but really it's 6 days before I turned 20, right? Nonetheless, it wasn't until the 28th, which was Thanksgiving, that I got to go back and look and say, wow, I'd been sober for 6 days, and that hadn't happened since boot camp, and prior to boot camp, that hadn't happened since I was 14, and I pursued absolutely everything in Alcoholics Anonymous in that first 6 months with an extraordinary enthusiasm. Everything except the steps, mind you, but everything else, I came here and I got into activity really quickly. I'm not into action, mind you, but into activity, and I washed coffee cups, and I hung out, and I listened to all the old timers talk, and then I would go to other meetings and parrot what the old timers said, and I thought it was really, hip, slick, and cool, and that sponsor started taking me through the steps, and I pulled a fast one on John. I mean, John arrived at Alcoholics Anonymous and he was illiterate. Like he couldn't just, and so he would sit and read the book to me, and I was impatient. And so he said, well, why don't you read the book to me? And all of a sudden, I became, a pretty slow reader. Like, we don't want to get through this too quickly because I hear that inventory is coming, and that's really scary. And if you're new, 4 isn't scary, it's 9. It's much further down the road, But I thought the inventory was, and so I drug my feet, and I did those first 3 steps in that first 6 months. Then I got deployed with the Navy, and we went through the preface and the different forwards of the book, and I didn't get that we were in a worldwide fellowship. I didn't, right? And I just thought I was lucky enough to stumble into Alcoholics Anonymous on Coronado, and and I need to backtrack a moment. The Navy still did send me through rehab. I went into rehab January 14th, and I was all of 40-some days sober at that point, and thought I had everything licked. I thought I knew it all. I couldn't understand why they still wanted to send me. I mean, didn't they see that I was, on a solid foundation, already on the road to freedom, but they were insistent upon it. And I don't know how you sit around in a Johnny Cash uniform with your little medals on and share about your feelings in front of a group of guys all dressed the same way and be honest. Most of them didn't, and I didn't most of the time. But the thing that they did is they bussed us out to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I only mention this because it was a pivot point for me. It was what you might even call a watershed event. We went to a meeting out in Spring Valley, a meeting that I have not been back to, and I saw a guy that. As they're giving out tokens, I saw a guy get up to take a chip for 60 days. And most people, as they were getting up to take chips, were extraordinarily excited. I mean, like, I finally got it. And this guy wasn't. What his experience with Alcoholics Anonymous had been was he had been coming around for 20 years. And he had never gotten a 90-day chip. So getting a 60-day chip for him was like the final warning, like, sometime in the next month I'm going to drink again, because that's what always happens for me. And I went back to that rehab in that Navy barracks that night, and said probably the most selfish prayer that I could think of. It was honest, but it was, God, I just don't want to turn out like that guy, Nonetheless, so I went off on this 6-month cruise with the Navy, and didn't ask for any help, didn't ask for any directions, didn't ask for any suggestions on what I was to do while I was gone. I just told my sponsor, hey, I'm going to be out to sea for 6 months. I'll see you when I'm back. Had I taken the time, I would have discovered that there's an international directory with meetings overseas in all the different ports that we were going to hit. But I just took my big book, and I read my big book cover to cover 5 or 6 times over the course of that 6-month cruise. And what I know is that me reading the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous like it's a novel or a story doesn't work. I came back off of that cruise just absolutely crazy, I went to my sponsor with my big plan at the time, which was I was going to drop acid and then tell my supervisor that I had dropped acid. And since all I ever did was drank, I didn't do any drugs, it wouldn't really be a break in my sobriety. So they could kick me out of the Navy still, but I wouldn't ruin this year of sobriety that I had had. And then I could go off and do whatever it was that I wanted to do. And he didn't think that was really wise at all. And then shortly after that, I went to a men's stag meeting that I had been going to, that my sponsor went to, and it came around to my turn to share, and I said, "Hi, my name's Doug, I'm alcoholic," and everything after that was a lie. Like, just everything was just this made-up crap to impress you about how super cool and spiritual and on the path that I was. And I got 5 minutes into this pack of lies, and John interrupted me in the middle of the meeting and said, "Doug, this is Alcoholics Anonymous. You don't have to lie to stay here." And I was humiliated. So much so that I fired him. I mean, I didn't really tell him, you know, I just left and found a whole new set of meetings to go to and didn't call him or go back to that meeting or... And what had happened, unfortunately for me, is that shortly after getting a little bit of physical sobriety, I developed an opinion about how I was going to do AA. You know, and when we're young, we bounce back really quick. You know, and so it didn't take me long. It didn't take me long at all to develop this opinion about what I needed to do and what I didn't need to do. You know, and I certainly didn't need to do that inventory because, by God, I was only 19 years old when I got here. How could that apply to me at all? You know, I didn't need to pay those people back. They had much more money than I had ever managed to accumulate in that short 20 years of my existence, you know. And I became that guy in meetings. I became the two-stepper. I became the guy that would scout out for the newcomers. You know, I would post myself on one of the walls off to the side of the room and pick out the new women as they came into the meetings. And I became a distraction. I became a leech and a lech. I became the guy that started getting kicked out of meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous because I couldn't behave appropriately. I got the opportunity to encourage groups of Alcoholics Anonymous to study Tradition 1 and understand what unity really meant, because it was more important for the group and those newcomer women to survive and have an opportunity to stay sober than it was for me to get laid after the meeting, you know? And I see those guys today, you know, and I get to make eye contact with them, and I know what you're doing, you know, and sometimes they say what, and sometimes they just walk away. But I was that guy. You know, I got thrown out of meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they would say lovely things as I was being pushed out the door, like, you know, if you're really serious about your sobriety, we would love you to come back next week. But if all you're going to do is try to screw one of our newcomers one more time, you are not welcome. You know, and by the time I was 3.5 years sober, my life was... I was in more pain at that point than I was, you know, when I had come in Alcoholics Anonymous. I had had a litany of sponsors, all of them very good AA members, who I would go up and ask them to sponsor me, and they would say, "That's great. Where are you on your steps?" And I'm like, "Well, I've, you know, done 1, 2, and 3." And they'd say, "That sounds wonderful. Why don't we get started on step 4?" And I'd be like, "No, thanks." You know, and I'd go on to the next guy. I remember standing in the Pacific Beach Alano Club, and I asked one guy point blank to his face, "Will you be my sponsor?" You know, and he said, "Great." He gave me the full spiel. "Where are you on your steps?" "I'm on, you know, I've done 1, 2, and 3. "Great, let's get started on that inventory." And I said, "No, thank you." And I turned to the guy right next to him, and I said, "Hey, could you be my sponsor and can we skip all of this inventory stuff? And he said, probably not. And I said, screw you guys, and I'm out of here. You know, I just didn't think it applied to me, you know. I went back to a meeting on Coronado just because all of the other meetings in Pacific Beach and Ocean Beach and La Jolla and Del Mar and Solano Beach and starting to go east were starting to get uncomfortable because they knew me. And a guy that I had gotten sober with by the name of Rick had overdosed and died. And I was contemplating drinking. You know, and I went back to this meeting, and they said that Angry Rick had died. He had drank on a Monday and overdosed on heroin on a Saturday, and he was gone. And I had come to that jumping off point that our book talks about in sobriety, where I couldn't imagine life with or without alcohol. I couldn't imagine life with or without Alcoholics Anonymous, and I didn't know what to do. You know, and I went back to that first guy. I went back to John and said, John, will you take me through the steps? And he said to me, you know, are you willing to do absolutely anything for victory over alcohol? And for the first time in my sobriety, I was able to say yes and be honest about it. You know, and so we finally started getting into the steps and into the book and into the inventory, and it was amazing to see how quickly my life turned around when I started applying the spiritual principles that are in this book. There are a couple of important things that, important for me that I want to touch on as we talk about the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm not going to go through all 12 because we only have about 20 minutes. John took me through that inventory, and he had done something with his sponsor where he had done the steps out of a Hazelton booklet. And if you want the Hazelton promises, do the steps out of a Hazelton booklet. But if you want the promises of Alcoholics Anonymous, maybe you should do them out of the big book. Nonetheless, we went through that inventory, and I don't know where he had gotten this idea from, but we went through some sort of ceremonial burning of the inventory as we got into step 5, where we talked about all the individual resentments and fears in my sex inventory and all of that crazy stuff that I had done to those people that I thought they had done to me. And he took scissors and cut everything apart and put it into a little bucket, and we walked down to Coronado Bay from my dopey little apartment, and he poured lighter fluid over the top of everything and set it on fire, and it was freeing, it was ceremonial. I watched the ashes of my resentment float away. And then John moved. Bummer, right? So I had to go ask another guy to be my sponsor. And I told him, you know, he asked me, where are you at on your steps? And I said, I just did 4 and 5. I've looked at 6 and 7. It's time to get on to 8 and 9. And he said, great. You know, and we looked at step 8 in the book, and it says, we got to step 8, and we had a list of people whom we needed to make amends to. We made it when we took inventory. And I had to explain to him, no, it was burning and ceremonial and freeing, and my resentments floated away, and he didn't believe me. And so I hope you understand whose name went at the top of that list when I started writing down the next resentments, you know. And if you need to have the burning and the ceremony and the freeing and the ashes and the buckets next to the harbor, that's great. Stop by Kinko's, you know. Make a copy of that so you don't have to go through that, you know. So I finally got onto my amends, and there were a couple that I was balking at. You know, this small town that I grew up in, the first ever Crime Stoppers video that they made that was broadcast on TV in Livingston, Montana, was for an event that I was involved in, and it was big deal in small town Montana. You know, a buddy of mine and I were intoxicated and decided to flatten all of the cars on the Ford car lot that was in town. You know, I don't know why, but we did. You know, all 40 or 50 of them, and you know, $100 a tire times 4 tires times 50 or 60 cars was much more money than I even have today in my bank account. But I had moved away, and it was like out of sight, out of mind, and I didn't want to give them the money, and I would go home and visit my family periodically, and what would happen is as I would drive by the Ford car lot, I would see myself kind of sink down in the seat, you know, like, oh, they're gonna get me again. And by the time I'm past the lot, I'm peeking over the dashboard, and finally, one day I got just this vision of myself hunched beneath the steering wheel, and realized how absolutely ridiculous it was, and turned around and went back to the car lot and spoke with the general manager, and I got some really weird looks that day. You know, most of my amends had gone very, very well. You know, people were extraordinarily grateful that I was sober, that I wouldn't be inflicting my sickness upon the world anymore, that maybe I might actually be able to contribute something worthwhile to society finally. And but that guy, he looked at me and he's like, "That was you." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, and another buddy, but I can't really incriminate him, so I just need to take responsibility for my part, and if that has to be all of it, then so be it. What can I do to, you know?" And unfortunately, the car lot had changed hands several times since then, and I just went, "Oh, thank God." But he said, "Well, but I have the guy's number. Hold on." And so he picks up the phone and he calls the guy that used to own it. And the first question, of course, was, "Well, does he have a check?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, I don't, but I'm willing to, you know, set up payments or you know, whatever you need to make this right." And he said, "No, thank you. I certainly appreciate the show of good faith and you being willing to step forward, and insurance money covered it all, and we'll let bygones be bygones." And what I found is that the next time I drove by the car lot, my back was straight, my hand was out. You know, there was no involuntary shirking beneath the steering wheel and the dash. Because I can't let bygones be bygones. That stuff eats away inside of me. It may take some time. It may corrupt my actions to the point where I'm socially unfit, but that will eventually happen. The other one that was amazing is that in my sexual inventory, I had to write about sexually assaulting a girl while I was in high school, and because I'm a blackout drinker and because it was just these little flashes of what may have happened, I didn't know, you know, and I didn't want to go to jail. You know, I didn't want to go back to her and say, "I've got to make this right, and if that means I have to go to jail, I'm okay." And I put that amends off 8, maybe 9 years, you know, and just lived with the pain of that. And finally, it was apparent that I needed to do something with that, and you know, through the wonders of the internet, managed to track her down and call her up and say, "Hey, I need to make amends to you for this thing that happened." And she's like, "What thing?" And I started telling her about my memories of assaulting her, and she let it go on for, you know, 5-6 minutes, and finally interrupted me and said, "Doug, that never happened." So there are two problems. One, either my memory of her in that incident is not right and it's somebody else, and therefore somebody not associated with Alcoholics Anonymous knows entirely too much about my history, or my my brain makes stuff up. Like there are things that have happened, and I can't tell what's fancied or real sometimes. Had I been honest and forthright and enthusiastic and willing to take the action that was in front of me, I wouldn't have had to carry that around for 8, 9 years thinking that I was that guy, with her. So that part of our book where it says we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start, my interpretation of we beg of you to be fearless and thorough as soon as you decide to get around to it and after you've stopped screwing our newcomers and had so much pain in your life that you can't stand your existence anymore. The way that I interpreted it and read it is wrong, and I hope that you take it word for word, My sponsor today has been my sponsor for 10 years. And as a result of, moving and other people moving and blah, 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 I didn't get to be that guy, obviously, that got a sponsor and stuck with one. But for those of you who know Pops, I can't use his real name at the podium because of our traditions and not name dropping, but his nickname is Pops. And if you get up to Ventura County, I will introduce you. But sponsorship with him has been extraordinarily entertaining. It turns out that most of the direction that I get from him is all about remedial reading because I interpret stuff wrong. We've gotten to go through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've gotten to sit down and define words that and I'm relatively intelligent. I'm good with words with friends. I do pretty good, right? But I misinterpret things to my benefit, mind you, most of the time. And so what it has been is a journey where we've gotten to delve into what is Alcoholics Anonymous and how do these steps apply and how do I live in a relationship. And, Nikki is the first girlfriend that I've had where it has lasted more than a year, and I think it's probably much more, a testament to her perseverance than mine. But the fact that I'm able to not run away, which is my usual pattern, like, oh, this is hard, screw it, I'm out of here, and we have a really good time, and sometimes we have hard times, and life goes on. And but as a result of delving into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and taking some time to understand our history and to read about our traditions and our concepts and to be of service in AA, I've found a freedom that I wish I could have discovered right when I got here, One last little plug, and I will wrap it up. When I moved from Pacific Beach up to Ventura County, I was 5.5 years sober. My home group in Pacific Beach had been the PB Young People's meeting on Friday nights. If you went to that meeting somewhere between January of 1992 and January of 1997, and you're a woman and you were between the ages of about 14 and 42, I probably owe you an amends, so please come see me after the meeting. But nonetheless, I had come from this huge young people's home group meeting and moved to Ventura County, and I found one other person who was under 30 that had more than a year of sobriety, and I slept with her, and that didn't work out really well. but all of a sudden, I had gone from this huge fellowship that kind of just tolerated me to a fellowship that looked like everybody had, known Bill Wilson personally. I mean, it was like I was the young guy, and as I stuck around for a couple of years, some young people's meetings got started, and then we got to start a young people's service committee, and we bid for this conference called ACUPA for a number of years, and if you've never gotten the opportunity to work on a service committee, I am firmly convinced that service committees are specifically created in Alcoholics Anonymous to teach us how to work with each other. Not necessarily to achieve anything, although that's great. Not necessarily to, change the face of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's simply a forum where we come together and we get to throw all of our character defects into the same room, and hopefully we don't run away. And that was really scary for me for a little while. I mean, because what if I wasn't, and then I became the guy that was driving people out of those. And I had to change my behavior yet one more time, but we muddled our way through and hosted an ACUPA conference, and then I got to be a member of what is called the ACUPA Advisory Council, which is this custodial service body where we look out for the welfare of the ACUPA conference, and some of those service people are here tonight, and thank God. And yet again, I got to learn how to work with a group of people, and through their example, I've gotten to grow. Through the service work that I saw done around me, and somebody grabbed my hand, I got to come along and share in something that's absolutely revolutionized my sobriety, that has placed me in a position where I am so much better for the experience of it. I got to be on that advisory council for 6 years, and I mean, short of breathing in and out, I don't know that I've done anything consistent in my life for an entire 6 years, and through their example and through what they have accomplished with that service body, again, I've grown and I've changed, and thank God for it. Thank God for all the work that they did, that I got to participate in, and I get to be a member among members today. That commitment ended, and I went about 2-3 weeks without having a commitment, and Eric is out here in the third row back over here with the Sox hat on, and goes to what passes for my home group meeting today, and I got a treasury commitment there, and I'm sorry you had to come all the way down out of Oxnard to suffer through this. I'll see you next Friday. But I just get to participate. I go there and I'm the treasurer, and I don't necessarily run my mouth all that often, because they'd have the looks that some of you have right now. When is this guy going to be quiet? But I'm coming up on a point. This November, November 22nd, I will be 20 years sober, and then November 28th, I will turn 40. Right? And that's through your example. That's through you guys taking the moment to hold out your hand and say, please come along and try this thing that's new and it's scary and you might not like it, but at least come along and try to give something back to those people that spent so much time putting up with your silly ass when you got here, And it's through it's through service that I've found freedom. And I hope that you guys stick around long enough to get that, because it has made all the difference in the world. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Again, Chris, thank you for the invitation, and thank you all for the time and the opportunity to speak. Appreciate it.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. And if that shows up, the gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.